Hello everyone. Welcome to Stamp and Create with Beth. I'm Beth Roy, an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. Today, the card I want to make with you is this one right here. So I had a request after I did my blended sunrise or sunset video to make a winter version. So we are going to recreate this card today. And I am using some retired products, so you can substitute in anything that you have on hand. I've also have on my blog, you can look at the details for this stepped up version and then stepping it up again with some die cuts and some new designer series paper, Peaceful Garden. So let's get started. I'm going to tell you our supplies that we need. So I used the new 2025 to 27 in color Secret C, and I also used the in color cloud cover. So I don't have a big pad. The cloud cover, you can have an ink spot and you use the ink refill to make that, or there is a spot that comes in one of the assortments. I am going to use 2 small blending brushes. You can use the large blending brush if you prefer. I have a Secret C card base. It is 4 1/4 inches by 11, and it's scored at 5.5. So it is a top open portrait, or you can do a landscape card as well. And I'm just going to go ahead and use my bone folder on this really quick. And then the layers are basic white, and they are 5 1/4 inches by 4. So I have 1 for the outside and 1 for the inside. I am also using craft white ink, and I'm going to water that down, and I'm going to use that to make these splatters like it's snowing. And I also used Wink of Stella, so I do have a Wink of Stella pen here that we're going to use that as well for splatter. For my stamps, I used Peaceful Evergreens. Now this set is retired, so if you don't have this set, use whatever trees you have. For my greeting, I used the Let It Snow from Sophisticated Sled. You're going to need some scrap pieces of paper. This is a die set that was on the Last Chance. I don't recall what it's called. Sorry about that. It is Fancy Border Dies. And I thought I would just try to see how I could make a mask using these shapes. And so I just laid it out on some scrap, and I used this to kind of make my snowbank. So if you don't have dies that you want to use, you can also just use scraps and tear an edge. And you just want it to be uneven so that it looks like snowbank. So on this card, I used these 2. So I will do that so you can see it. But on my other cards, my other samples, I actually just used these. And you can do either thing. Okay, so the very first thing that I did was my blending. So we're going to take, I did not blend on the inside of my card. I just stamped. So we're just going to do this here. And hopefully you can see well on my glass mat. I do prefer the glass mat when I'm blending because I don't waste as much ink. Okay, so I'm going to start off with my cloud cover. And I want to go about 1/4 of the way up. I want to leave some room for my greeting. It's okay if it's not exactly the same. And this is where I'm going to stamp my tree, where this kind of curves in here. So I'm just kind of putting that where I think I want it. And I'm going to hold that down. Let's ink this up first. It is a little different blending from one of these little spots, but it is still possible. So I'm going to rub just a little bit off of here. And then I like to start off onto my mask, and I'm just going to go along that edge. And I'm just kind of using a circular motion. So you can add as much ink as you want on this. So if you want the snowbank's shadows to be really dark, then you just keep adding ink along that edge until it is the darkness that you want. So if you want it light, you're just using a really gentle touch here, and you're just barely going off that mask. And sometimes it is hard to see until you take the mask away. So when I take this away, you can see there that I do have color on there. So it depends on how dark you want it. I am going to do a little stamping here, but I do want it just a little bit darker. So I'm just going to put my mask right back. I'm going to pick up some of that ink I deposited over there. So there's one. And then I'm going to come back in over here. And I'm not going to go all the way to this edge. I do know that I'm going to have a tree here. So I'm just going to put this right here like this. About halfway. Doesn't have to be perfect. And it also depends on how much sky you want showing. Okay. So I'm going to do this right along here. Just a little darker. So this is going to give you kind of a smooth look to your snowbanks. Now, I want this to extend out, so I'm just going to line this up where it kind of left off and add a little bit more. Some of it's going to get covered up, so it's okay if it isn't perfect. We're just adding a little bit. Now, if you're going to leave it, where this isn't stamped right here, then you'll want to make sure that it kind of lines up a little better. But I'm not too worried. Okay, so we got a snowbank here. And remember, I'm going to stamp my trees there. So I kind of did that so I know as a guide for myself. Now this one I used along the back. And you just go up as high as you want. So it depends on how much sky you want and how much snow you want showing. And I'm just going to go along this the same exact way. And this is actually going to be the start of our sky. But I like going from this direction because I want this to be a little bit lighter. I want a little transition there. So when you re-ink, just make sure you start down here so that if there's any thick ink on your brush, it doesn't leave a blob where you want your snow. Or the shadow, I should say. So you can see. Now I do want this a little darker because it is going to be our sky area. I'm just going to put that back on, load up again, and add more. So you just keep going back in and adding ink until you kind of have it as dark as you want. And I'm going to start extending out here. There we go. So see how that's really dark, the start of our sky. Now I'm done with my masks. I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to pick up some more of this ink. I'm going to start this direction. So you don't have to get this really dark. We're going to come in there with some Secret Sea. And I'm not worried about too many blobs here because I know I'm coming in with a darker color. But if you're just using one color, maybe you just want to use cloud cover. You don't want it to be a night scene. Just be careful to start off your page and then come on so that that ink can move around a little bit on your brush. And if you have any really heavy spots, they don't leave a mark of the brush because it will. And then I like leaving the ink over here because as I need more, I can pick it up. So this ink, it's really light. It's almost the same color as my glass mat, so it's probably hard for you to see. And you can go back and forth. I like to do circular motions. I just feel like it's a little softer and I'm less likely to leave some of those blobs. So pull that down as far as you want. You can leave some white space or lighter, a little bit lighter so that you're not pressing as hard or adding as much ink in an area, so it has a little bit of a transition. Now I am going to stamp with this when I stamp, so I'm just going to put that off to the side, and now I'm going to use my Secret Sea. Mine may not look as dark as yours because I have been using mine so much that I need to refill my ink. So I'm going to start at the top just like I did with that cloud cover, and I'm just gently pulling that ink on. So I want to start off and then just gently put that on it. The brushes lay the ink on very softly. I love that it is, you have to build the color because then you can have a very light color. And I love this Secret Sea. It's like a very, very deep dark blue. It has kind of a gray tone. And I just think it's a beautiful color. Okay, now I'm going to start darkening this edge a little bit. So you can leave it very light all the way up, or you can pull that darkness down and make it really dark, like it's already transitioning to a night sky. And I just keep pulling that ink on, and I want it to get really dark on that edge. And then you just want to lighten up on your pressure to keep it soft toward that edge where you want the colors to kind of transition. Now for the blending brushes, you do not need a brush for every single color. I actually use this brush for Secret Sea. You can use it for Night of Navy and Misty Moonlight. When I blend with Night of Navy, I think it looks more of a blue-purple. So I do love this color for a true dark night. And then the cloud cover, I have a different brush just because it is a very unique color in the Stampin' Up! Line, and I don't want to mix that one with anything. So that one I have its own brush, but I typically have brushes just for the color family, like a dark red, the bright reds, and then dark pinks and light pinks. And so I'm just going to keep going over this top edge. I want this to get very dark up here. It's a stormy, wintry night. And I'm pulling that ink off my glass mat and using all of it up. So you're going to keep applying that until it is as dark as you want. And then I just like to go over it. So there is a really dark sky. I left a little more on this one than I did here. So that is completely up to you. I feel like every time I do one of these skies, it turns out a little different. Just pulling some of that down a little bit. There we go. Okay, now this cleans up very easy. Your glass mat comes with a chamois. You just wet it and rinse it. You don't need anything else. I do have a towel here to dry it just because I don't want my layer to get wet. And we are ready to stamp. Now, I am stamping with this ink pad, but I do have, if you got the recent paper pumpkin, it has a Secret C spot. I am waiting for my refill to come back in stock so I can re-ink mine. I am going to use a stamp positioner for that reason because my ink pad's not stamping as dark as I would like, and I want my trees to be very, very dark. So get out your stamp positioner for this part. And I'm just going to take my time here and add my trees. So I used a large tree on the front. I'm just kind of gauging. Now remember, I have my greeting that I want to go down here. So I'm leaving a little space for that. And I want it to hang off just a little. So whatever trees you have, you can use whatever works for you, or whatever you have in your stash. I just looked for a winter tree. I like these evergreens. And I'm going to stamp that and let it soak in for a second. These dark inks take a minute to transfer. And so the longer you leave this pressed on, the more ink's going to transfer. So you can see it's not bad. You can do it like this, but I want mine darker. I want that color that's on the label. So I'm going to ink mine a few times. So I get that nice dark color. And I didn't do this as dark, so it's not, so you can see it isn't, it doesn't really show there, but you did it, you know, so that it does, if you're up close, you can kind of tell more in person. Okay, so I'm done with this one. I'm going to put it on my cleaning pad over here, and I'm going to grab this next tree. So I used a large tree, now I'm using a medium-sized tree. Actually, I'm going to wait on that one. I'm going to stamp these. I want them to stay in the background. So I have a row of smaller trees, and I'm going to let them hang off the page here. So there's 4. You can't really see that third one because this one's going to cover it up, but I still like that it's stamped because depending on where I place this tree, they do show. And this one, this is going to get stamped here. And I'm just kind of guessing. Now this one, I don't mind if it's lighter because I want that tree in the front to be darker anyway. That's good. Okay. Now let's stamp this one. And remember, I kind of wanted it where I put that curve in, and I am going to pull it down just a tad. And so you can put it wherever you like best. And this one I want to be really dark. So again, I'm just stamping these the same way. I'm going to ink it again. So that's pretty good. So if you want it even darker, I think I inked it 4 or 5 times when I did my original. It's up to you on how dark you want to make that. And before I take this away, if you wanted to make it look fuller, you could slide your paper over and stamp this again so it's a little bit lighter, so that it looks like your trees are kind of layered in behind each other. This one I kept very simple. Now the next thing that I'm going to stamp, I'll put this here, is this Let It Snow. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp my greeting. Actually, I think I stamped that last. Okay. You guys ever make cards and then forget what order you did things in? That's me. Okay, so let's do our shadows first. So to do our shadows, I used 2 of the texture dies that were in that tree set, and I stamped off. So I have a scrap sheet of paper here, and I'm going to ink this, and this is with cloud cover. I'm going to stamp off, and then I'm going to stamp here. So it isn't very dark, okay, but it's just a little texture there. I want it to kind of go under that tree. And I don't want it to be really dark. So that's why I'm inking and stamping off. This is called second generation, when you ink and then stamp on your project. And it doesn't have to be inked all the way. Now the second stamp that's in that set is this one. And I really like this texture. So I ink it up. And then I'm just going to put it right under that tree. And it's okay if it's a little darker. We're going to stamp our greeting there. So I'm just adding that texture in around the bottom of my trees. And don't forget your trees in the back. They need some too. So do as much as you like. Add a little more down here. This pad's very juicy because you can re-ink these little spots as much as you want. So, and I just like to stamp around and add that texture. Okay, now I'm ready for my greeting. And I am going to hold this down. I want to be able to re-stamp it if it doesn't stamp correctly. And if your stamp positioner uses a pad for photopolymer, and make sure you stick that in there. Let it snow. Okay, and I'm going to use that Secret C. I think that's good. All right, now we are ready to do our splatters. So you'll want a protective sheet down on your work area. So now I'm going to come in and I'm going to do this white ink. And what I do is I take my white craft ink and I'm going to put a little bit down here on my block. These can clean off, so don't worry about getting messy. I am going to move this card because when you splatter, it goes everywhere, and you do not want to get it all over your projects. So I have a water painter. This is an older one, but you can buy these again. So the tube holds water. It's great for watercoloring or techniques like this. And you can find those in my online store. They just came back. So I'm going to squeeze a little water down in here. Probably got a little too much. And you're going to thin that ink out. And then we're just going to, this has a lid, and I'm going to use the lid to flick on here. Now, if you get it really watered down, just be careful. It does react with the water-based ink. So our Secret C is water-based. And this will react, and sometimes it makes it dilute where your trees are just a little bit, but that's okay. So if you want it thicker, just stick a little more white ink in there, and we're ready to go. So I have my brush all loaded up, and I'm going to get kind of close. And I'm just going to flick. And I'm taking my time. I don't want to overdo it or oversaturate any one area. But I love this. If you keep the ink a little thicker, it actually creates like raised droplets. And so it's really fun because to me, it really looks like it's snowing. I love doing this on my winter themed cards. And the white does soak in a little bit. So you can also tap if you're more comfortable with that. I don't find I get as much ink that way, but maybe I'm not tapping hard enough. So I'm just going to do a little bit down here. And then we're going to come in with Winkostella. So do it as thick as you like. You do want to clean this brush right away and clean your lid. And I just grab some wipes. I use unscented baby wipes for sensitive skin. So there's no chemicals or dyes in this, so I don't feel like it hurts my supplies. You can also take this to your sink and rinse it out. So the craft ink will dry hard, And so you want to make sure you get that out of your brush. So I'm just squeezing it so the water comes out. If you're using a paintbrush and you don't have a water brush and you're using a regular paintbrush, that is fine. You can use your finger to flick it on your finger instead of a lid like this. Okay. You just want to clean it out, or you'll have to throw it away. It will dry hard. And I'm just cleaning my lid a little bit. Oop. So you can see I have white ink all over my glass mat where I was flicking it. That's okay. It will clean up. It just doesn't clean out of your brush. Okay, so I can see I didn't get hardly any in here. So I may come back in and do more, but you do need to let it dry a little bit. So I'm going to add the Wink of Stella now. And I just take my Wink of Stella brush and I squeeze. Hopefully this is the full one. Maybe not. Let me see. I have several here. Oops. Okay, you know it's time for a new brush when none of them want to work. Okay, last one. I know one of them has it in there because, there we go. So I'm just going to squirt some out, and it comes out quick. And this is just a clear solution with glitter in it, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to get really close and flick this on the same way I did the white ink. It just adds some sparkle. Now you could mix this with your white ink. If you don't want to do two different things, you could mix this with your white ink. I like them separate. And I like to do it a little heavy. Just remember, it is wet, so that blue ink might start reacting with it. And when I lift it up, you'll be able to see. You can set this off to the side for later and just add a little water to it and it reactivates. Or you can wipe it off with a block. Mine went over the edge here. Okay, so next, you would leave this to dry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this off to the side, and I'm leaving it on my scrap paper that I splattered with. And I'm going to pull in my envelope and my inside piece, and we're going to stamp it. So on my inside piece here, I just stamped a little bit of that cloud cover shadow and a tree. It does not have to be really dark. It can just be lighter than the front. And on the envelope, we're going to stamp a tree. So just a little fun thing to do. You don't have to leave your trees, or I'm sorry, your trees, your envelopes naked. We're going to stamp a little tree on there. So I'm actually going to use my little spot here. So these come in paper pumpkins. We do have some assortments for sale in the online store. I got this one from my paper pumpkin, and you can refill these. It's juicier than my ink pad here. And I'm just going to stamp this down in the corner here. So if you make a landscape card, make sure that you turn your inside piece so that it is the same orientation as the front of your card. There's our tree. And then I'm going to use this little row of trees for my envelope. So if you're making a batch of these, maybe you want to make more than one. We want to make a whole set for your Christmas cards or your winter birthdays or winter holidays. You can blend all your backgrounds and then do all your stamping and then do all of your splatter spray. So I'm just sticking this down in the corner of my envelope here, like that. Okay, so my envelope's all ready to go. I'm going to bring in my cloud cover. I'm going to bring in that texture stamp, and I do want to stamp off with this again. My pad's very juicy. I've been blending with it, so I've re-inked it. So I don't want that on my shadow. So I am just going to stamp off and stamp that here. And then I'm going to stamp off a couple times, turn it, and stamp again. So I'm just going along the bottom there. Again, you can do it as dark as you want. Now we're ready to go. I am going to use my heat tool to dry my layer a little bit. If you touch this right away, let me pull this up, all these little blobs, our splatters, our beautiful snow, it is going to smear, and I don't want it to smear. So I'm going to hit it with my heat tool before I put it on and hope that I get it dry enough. I typically do my splatters, and then I walk away for a little while and do something else and come back to finish my cards. So it does take a little more time, but it has a beautiful effect. So I'm going to go ahead and put my inside piece here. And it's going to get loud, so you might want to turn the sound down if you don't like the heat tool noise. And I'm going to let it warm up for a second. Okay. So I just did it for about a minute. And I can still see that some of it's liquid, but I'm going to go ahead and carefully put adhesive on it and put it on the front so you can see the finished card. My layer might have been off just a little bit. I can tell you the exact measurements. This piece looks a little smaller. See, I stuck my finger right there. Okay, so I'll come back later and press that down. Let me just grab my ruler really quick. I thought my piece was 4 by, no, it is 4 by 5 1/4. Okay. So there we go. Maybe my card base is off. So my original was oops, 4 by, yep, okay. That's what it is. This is 4 1/2. So I will trim this down. For whatever reason, it is the wrong size. Okay, there you have it. So I hope you've enjoyed this technique of creating a sky. It does come out different every time. And you can layer it. So if you want a lighter card base, you can layer it. Or you can do die cuts and create your scene and add embellishments. So these 2 cards, the details are over on my blog. You can find that link down in the description. Thank you all for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, feel free to leave me a comment. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.